welcome to this episode of the Gig Harbor Flycast. I have Aaron O'Brien with me today, and I'm super excited because I've been twisting his arm about sitting down to do a podcast forever, and he said, dude, I am not going to give up my secret fishing spots, and here we are. Going to give up all of your favorite fishing spots.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Oh, man. So Aaron's been guiding for us since 2017, and right?
Yeah.
More or less.
More or
less. I mean, what's a year anyways? Yeah. But for a while, for quite a bit. And he's our lead guide. And many of you have booked trips and have been out with Aaron and love Aaron. And so excited to have a conversation with him, because you'll get to know him a little bit better. For those of you that have not booked a trip with us, we hope to kind of give you a little bit of a flavor of what the seasons look like, because for us, there's a lot of variety and it changes a lot. And part of the initial questions we have with people is just trying to, or the initial conversations we have with people about guide trips is just helping them into the right kind of seasons. Because we get people that say, hey, I want to book a steelhead trip, and it's like August. And it's like, well, maybe not this month, but how about we go fish the saltwater for salmon or something like that. So anyways, hopefully this is educational and you pick something up from it, whether you're booking a guide trip or you're just looking at doing some fishing around Western Washington. Maybe I know a lot of people just kind of get their place, their rut, and they just fish the beaches or they just fish lakes, and they would like to fish something else. But they just need a little bit of a nudge to go try those things, or they haven't even thought about it before getting out and going after different fish than they're used to. So we're gonna wind back the clock a little bit and talk about the spring. So this last spring, you ran a bunch of different trips and quite a few trips on lakes, and I know most people are gonna be thinking, as soon as we say spring lake fishing, they're going to be thinking the picture in their mind is trout, but you actually are pretty deadly on bass fishing, and you love to bass fish. What do you think about bass fishing as far as when it comes to fly anglers in Western Washington?
It's kind of an overlooked fishery, I think, a little bit. It's really good. In the spring, the fish are, getting ready to spawn, and typically that May time frame, and it can be really, really good. Shallow water, big fish.
So springtime for fishing for bass, are you fishing poppers for fish that time of year, or is that too soon and you're fishing different tactics?
That's a little early for topwater in my experience, but the streamer bite's really good. I think, when we were down on Mayfield this spring, we were just crushing them on the little stuff.
Yeah.
Little streamers.
I think a lot of people, when they think, if they haven't done bass fishing before and they're thinking of it, they're thinking of topwater. And it definitely is cool to get a topwater eat, but they are, they see guys throwing crankbaits and 9-inch long plastic worms and all this kind of stuff. And they assume that to catch decent sized bass, that the fly would have to be big. But so you're saying that's not the case, that small stuff works just fine.
Small stuff works good too. Yep.
Okay. Well, what about trout fishing? Because, there are a lot of people that they want to fish lakes for trout. Sometimes I think anglers initially have a lot of fun with stocked trout and catch a bunch of them. But then it's like, okay, I don't know how many more, 11 to 13 inch trout I really want to catch. For people that are looking for maybe some more quality trout, some larger fish, what are some suggestions for them? Maybe even around tactics, or maybe, we don't have to hotspot things or whatever like that, because there are like 2 million people that listen to this podcast, but thanks to both of you. But, I don't really want to hotspot stuff. We're always willing to tell people when they stop in the shop or call us or whatever, but maybe you have some suggestions on maybe how to find some of those quality fish.
Yeah, the state puts out a stocking report, and it includes the size of the fish. So if you're looking for the more quality, bigger 5 to 10 pound trout, there's a list of them. They put it right out there. So it's pretty easy to find.
So there's no secrets anymore. Man. Yeah, if it wasn't Facebook that ruined fishing, like it's the stocking report. I think they've put that out for quite a bit. Okay, so you did mention Mayfield, and I was on that trip in the spring. Super fun to see muskies. We saw a muskie eat a bass while we were there. Like, that was crazy. But this was really fun. We did a lot of muskie trips this spring and summer. Some people don't even know what a muskie is. So maybe share what is a muskie, and then what are some of the tactics that we use to go after them?
Yeah. So tiger muskie are a cross between a northern pike and standard muskie. And they're a sterile hybrid, and they're stocked into 7 of our lakes here in Washington typically for control of a species in the lake that the state is trying to knock the numbers down. And they do a really good job of it. They're just eating machines.
Eating machines.
That's all they do is eat.
Well, and you look at them and you're like, yeah, this thing was designed to be an eating machine. Like, teeth, big, huge mouth that can swallow, like a duck.
Yeah.
So then you're actually fly fishing for muskies, and you just go throw any fly in the water?
Oh, yeah.
It's
super easy. Yeah. I think they call them the fish are like 10 casts or something.
Yeah,
like
10, 1,000, 0, 0, 0.
1,000 casts.
Yeah.
I think they get a little bit tough to catch as they get bigger because they don't eat as frequently. They eat a big meal, and then they sit there and digest it. And
sometimes I do that.
Yeah, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, or I was thinking Seabeck's pizza.
They can be a little challenging sometimes. They will often follow your fly and just look at it, But man, when you get them to eat, they're spectacular.
So I had one muskie eat, and it was hilarious because the rest of the group was down the shoreline quite a bit, and I was just kind of by myself, and I'm fishing this one area. It dropped off pretty good, and the water clarity was a little bit it wasn't quite as clear as some of the other areas we were at, and I'm stripping this giant fly. Jack had tied this fly up, and it's this big, massive black thing, and we've since learned that they'll eat all sorts of sizes of flies, but I'm stripping this fly in on the 10 weight with the intermediate line, and all of a sudden, this giant log just floats up and materializes out of nothing. And you don't even really, I don't know, some fish have a really distinguished movement as they kick their tail. This thing just they just glide. I think they have some sort of jetpack or something, but this thing just floats back behind my fly, and the fly is not very far. I had not cast a very long cast, and that now my fly is literally 10 feet from the boat. I could almost stab this fish with my rod tip, and I stopped. So I sit there and I just, instead of stripping the fly, I just kind of twitch it, and that fly was so big and heavy, it was just kind of sitting in the water, and it's just kind of dipping and diving just the head of the fly, and it was making the tail kick. Next thing I know, the muskie just opens its mouth and inhales, and my fly goes into its mouth. I go to set the hook, I strip set it, and this thing just starts thrashing back and forth with its mouth open, and I see the fly in its mouth. It's just churning the water, thrashing, and it probably thrashed 3 big head shakes, and then my fly just came out. And at that point, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hooked a muskie. It was just so weird. It's the whole experience happened, and then I didn't believe it. I'm like, no way. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just hooked a muskie. Yeah, it was so cool. But is that how they always eat? That's the only one I've ever seen eat. So,
man, no, they do. They do a bunch of different stuff. We had some wild eats. One of them, I got to see it really close. The fish was laying there like they often do, kind of looking at you and
sizing you up.
Yeah, and they don't seem to have a lot of fear. They're pretty
right?
They're pretty okay with you being there. It did a full 360 and but it ate the fly very gently. It just sucked the fly in, kind of almost like a trout, taking a mayfly.
Jeez.
Yeah, the eats are cool, man.
Okay. Well, I'm not the only one that's wanting this next year to go after them. I mean, I've heard from several clients, especially when they've seen the pictures that you got of some of these fish. Pretty spectacular. I mean, it's even just seeing them in the water, not even necessarily hooking the hooking them, that's great too. But just the experience of seeing the fish and even trying to cast to them and tease them and stuff like that. But I think a lot of times the one that you don't see is the one that eats. But so some of these trips down there, we encountered other fish other than muskies. And so that was a really cool experience as well. Like, do you want to talk a little bit about,
that was
what
fun.
we found?
When we were down there in the spring, we found the smallmouth, and they had moved up on the flats, and they're getting ready to do their spawn. And
The only thing small about them was their mouth.
yeah, no, they were all big.
When you say smallmouth, it's like they were really
the
nice.
muskie, I think, keep the small ones.
Okay,
The
so
numbers trimmed down, but yeah, I mean, all the ones we got were really, quality smallmouth. But yeah, they were staged up and up on these shallow flats, and boy, if you found a little piece of structure on the flat, a rock or a stump or something, there was a big smallmouth on it.
it was like as close to like bone fishing that you're going to get in Washington. Well, I mean, I guess we have the carp deal too, but it was, I mean, it was stalking fish and then sight casting to many of them, or at least likely spots. But sometimes you would see them swimming around and stuff like that, and that was pretty rad. Well, it's too bad we're not going to do any muskie trips this next year. Just kidding. No, we have big plans to do a lot more because man, every trip was great, and so that'll be great to be able to do some different muskie trips down there. So that even the muskie trips even went into the summer. It wasn't just spring; it was summertime as well. But gosh, summer brings everyone wants to go fishing. There's a lot of tourists in town during that time of year as well. Man, it was a great summer.
It was really good.
It was a really good summer. So like June and July, early summer, I still think of July as early summer. Like, what was some of the fishing that you were most excited about this last year?
Well, June was really good cutthroat fishing. We did good. July was great because we start to transition into the silvers, kind of tail end of July there.
Do you think June was good? Do you think it's because it was like weather dependent? Like, because we didn't have like crazy hot, like 95-degree weather or something, it wasn't like, it seemed like more like a normal June.
That definitely seems to help, right?
Yeah. You get those cloudy days,
Yeah.
like even just the littlest amount of clouds,
January,
like just,
yep.
Yeah. So, okay, transitioned in July to salmon fishing. And this year was a special year. Every other year is a special year, right? Did you guys find any pinks in July?
I didn't get a pink until the end of July.
Okay. Yeah, because we did our Fort Flagler camp out. I don't remember the date, but it was like about the 25th or so, right?
Last
so
week of July, I think. Yeah.
last week of July, and but even then we only got 2 pinks.
Right.
There's too many coho around, and that kind of
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, bummer, right? I mean, I know a lot of people were really excited about catching pinks this year, but we had more fun catching coho. I mean, coho you just can't beat coho. I mean, they are like the ultimate West Coast fly rod game fish. I mean, we really got into them too. There was a lot of fish.
It was very good.
Yeah, it's amazing when very good is an understatement. It was some of the best fishing I've seen, and gosh, I don't even know how long. Crazy good. And that made it hard too, because like fishing was so good at home, like right around Gig Harbor, there were all of these resident coho around. They were nice sized fish, just willing to crush a fly. But then we were like driving out to the coast, and we were like running Neah Bay trips and stuff like that. And Neah Bay, once again, did not disappoint. Like, it was a pretty incredible season out there. I mean, for people that have not done a trip, kayak fishing Neah Bay, it's a remote part of the state. A lot of people haven't been there. I mean, what's on a trip like that? What can someone expect?
Man, the fishing's really good. It's probably I would say one of the better places in Washington. Certainly for salmon in the salt.
Why is it so good?
It's close to the ocean. It gets a lot of fish, and it has a lot of food.
A lot of
food up there, and those fish are just feeding really, really hard. You just got to come see it. Like it's really good.
So we camp out. We cook up some good food. We camp out on a beach, which is always I think one of the highlights of the fishing is crazy good, but the group always loves the camping part of it, whether it's all of us standing there staring into the sky looking at like so many Starlink satellites that we think the aliens are coming for us, or the shooting stars that we see, or the way that the fog bank kind of rolls in and like changes the way that Canada looks and makes it look all purple and blue. And it's a pretty wild area. Like it just doesn't feel, well, I mean, there isn't a lot of people out there until you get out to the reservation. And so you have a very remote and wild experience. And so the fish that we fish for there, it's not just coho, but we fish for all sorts of stuff. And I love this trip because like we'll fly fish for rockfish. And we're usually using 7 weights or 8 weights, sinking lines most of the time. So we have messed around a little bit with a floating line and like bass poppers and stuff like that when the rockfish are up top. But then we'll also use conventional tackle and fish jigs because we love to catch lingcod. If you've never reeled up a lingcod on sport tackle, oh my goodness, like you won't believe they do get big size, but you always think that you have a bigger one on than you do because they just pull so hard. But one of the great parts about fishing down along the reef and stuff like that, so you don't know you're gonna hook, and there's all sorts of different species. And so like I'm bringing up all these different brightly colored things or dull colored things or all these funky weird just tons of different species of fish, and I'm like, Aaron, what is this? And he's like, that's a red Irish lord. Or Aaron, what's this? And I don't even remember all the names of all the different stuff, right? But there's like 4 or 5 that I'm like, oh, I know what these like 4 or 5 staples are, and then there's all these other ones that I have to consult with you because you've actually done not just fishing out there, but you've done actually a lot of diving as well. Why have you done so much diving out that way?
It's amazing. Like it's by far the best diving in our state. It's
do you have really good water clarity because the water's colder, so there's not as much?
Frequently, it's much better than Puget Sound.
Okay, because we get the algae blooms and that limits visibility and stuff like that.
And it's a high current area too, which helps.
So I did a kayak trip last Friday, and I was shocked at how clear the sound was. And it's just October. Like I felt like it was more clear than normal. Maybe that was the area that I was at, but it's a fairly shallow area. But we've had some cool weather, and winter is coming.
Winter's coming.
So Nia, we did. How many trips did we do to Nia this year?
We did 4.
That's right. We did 4 of them. We did one in June, and the rockfish fishing.
Off the charts.
It was crazy. They were blitzing all over bait, and I've never seen rockfish go that crazy for that long. Like I've seen them like come up and boil and kind of jump around and stuff like that, but it was like sustained.
Yeah.
They were just like, it almost looked like they were playing.
Right.
It didn't even look like feeding. Like they were just like flopping. They were like flopping, like they were happy fish.
They come straight up and then
they turn, like somehow buckle over in half, and then their tail comes down. And it was pretty cool. We hooked a couple kings that trip.
A couple nice ones.
And unfortunately lost those. We did hook a couple of coho, which we lost all the coho. There was only, I think, 4 hooked.
4 or 5, yeah.
Like it's the end of June when we did that trip too. So it was pretty early for those fish, and it's not a guarantee that they'd be in there. So it was just great to hook them. And then we weren't out there in July, and then we went out in August. We did a couple trips back to back, and then again in September. How do you feel like the season kind of changes and progresses, like the timing wise or size of fish, or just how from like summer going into the fall? Like, I mean, what's that change like?
Well, Nia Bay early like that, often that the rockfish fishing is good like that, at least in my experience. It's pretty good. And then when the numbers of the coho show up in there, man, it's lights out, as you've seen. I mean, it's really, really good. They feed, I mean, they're feeding the whole time. And so they grow really fast too. So the size difference between August and September,
right. September, They're nice fish. Well, there was some nice fish in August too. I was just editing down our Neah Bay videos from August. It was really cool because I hooked a nice king on the fly, and it was along a kelp bed, and it was probably only in, I don't know, maybe 18. It was definitely less than 25 feet of water, and maybe in the 18 to 22 range, somewhere around there. But anyways, for people that are familiar with kings, they're probably thinking like, dude, that's pretty shallow, because usually out fishing for kings, people are trolling around downriggers or jigging or mooching, and it's usually known as a deeper water fish. I mean, how have you seen those kings in shallow like that before?
Yeah. And they'll surprise you like that. Sometimes you know,
This is a surprise.
you're hooking coho, and all of a sudden that's not a coho.
And it was on a chartreuse fly too.
Yeah.
And I was even thinking, I'm like, man, I just want to sit in front of that kelp bed, because that wasn't the first king that we've hooked right there. I just want to sit there with like a chartreuse clouser and just cast and count it down and let it sink and retrieve it back. And so I think next year, I think I might even be a little bit more intentional about what fly goes where. So, because that's that, you know, probably isn't going to happen for a repeat, but
I don't know. The chartreuse hooked several big kings this year.
yeah, it's true. Well, I know a lot of people are really interested in Neah Bay, and we consistently have great trips out there, and so those trips fill up really fast. I think one of the things that makes me a little bit nervous about talking about kayak fishing out there is for those of you that are out there that are like, oh, I have a kayak, I want to go try that out, and I mean, we were out there one day where we saw one guy by himself, way out in the middle of the channel, and then all of a sudden the fog comes in, and like I'm like, dude, this guy's, he's gonna die. So I mean, we try to pick the tides right. We try to, you know, we make sure that we're going out in safe weather conditions, and we're looking at forecasts, and you and I talk about those things quite a bit, even days leading up to these trips. But you know, what should people, even if they're going to go fish in a small craft, you know, maybe not a kayak, but maybe they have a small boat they're going to take out there. What are some things that they need to really be considering how just kind of wild that area is?
Yeah, safety first. I mean, that fog can roll in really quick. The weather can change quickly. I've been caught in fog banks up there in little kicker boats, and
you hear the other boats, boats coming, and you're like, oh.
It's not something you want to do. So definitely a good VHF radio so that you're able to communicate with the Coast Guard if needed. Make sure your gear is all functioning really well. If you're in a kayak, a dry suit is a must. The water's really cold up there.
Yeah.
And then just really, you know, pick good days. Like don't go if the weather's questionable, because it's really close to the open ocean, and it can be legit.
Yeah, don't go on a strong outgoing tide. And if you do, bring your your Japanese English translation book. I mean, the other thing I would add too is to go with people.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the thing that probably makes me the most nervous is someone going by themselves out doing coastal fishing. And I mean, yeah, great that you have a Hobie and the pedal drive system can fight the current and can cover a lot of water, and it doesn't, you don't get exhausted doing it. But what if something happens to your pedal drive system? What if that one cable that is finally gives it up when you're the furthest out, like. So I think that there's some worst case scenarios that people need to really think through before doing some stuff like that. And we're always prepared. We have safety equipment, we have extra pedal drives, we have, we really kind of think through what could happen when we're out in a remote area, and we try to be prepared for that. But, even then with all the times we've been running trips, there's still surprises that come up. So, So another reason why someone should book with us. Just, yeah, we really just don't want customers to die because we want to grow our customer base. We don't want to lose our customer base. So, okay, so no more death talking. Halloween's next week. So fall fishing, we have some really cool fishing that is happening that's coming up. You and I had a blast last week out on the coast, and gosh, I just love those rivers out on the Olympic Peninsula. Man, we have some trips coming up. You want to talk about some of the stuff that you're going to be doing this fall and winter, and the opportunities there that people can jump into.
Yeah. So starting here in early November, we're going to be running some trips for coho out there on the coastal rivers. Super fun. If you haven't done this, floating the river out there, it's beautiful, and the fishing can be really, really good. We went out last year. You and I had a great time on my birthday out there.
Yeah,
it was incredible.
It was epic.
And it's shaping up to be pretty good this year. It looks pretty good.
There's a lot of fish around, and we were wondering too, right? Because salmon fishing in the saltwater was so good this last summer. We're like, man, these fish are all going to get in the rivers. Is it really going to be that good when they get in the rivers? And then it's like, yeah, it's going to be that good. There's going to be a lot of fish around. So the cool thing about the trips that you're running is this November for those coho trips, as well as the winter steelhead trips, is that we have a place for people to stay, and Olympic Rivers Retreat. And so when you book a trip, it's a package deal, includes lodging, and you show up the night before your trip. In the morning, we'll cook you some eggs and hash browns. We'll go to the river and float and fish. Lunch is provided as well. And if you're going to stick around and fish another day or a couple days, then we'll be providing dinner as well. So this is a great way you don't have to worry about booking a hotel or getting food or whatever. You're just grabbing your waders and your boots, fishing license, showing up, and we got you covered on everything else. So I think we're going to have some fun running those trips.
Yeah, great times.
All the information is on our website. Links are down below in the show notes, so make sure you check those out. And thanks for joining us today. Thanks, Aaron, for just being awesome. But thanks for being here too.
Thanks for having me.